Alright, so there's a look at the basic aspects of working with layers inside Photoshop. Now, I would love to show you a practical application for everything we've talked about, as well as showing you some more advanced techniques for your layers inside Photoshop. So we're done with the statue for now. So you can close him or you can minimize him or do whatever you like to him there. I'm just going to get him out of the way. And I'm going to open up the next file here. I'm just going to double click on this gray background. Remember that trick? And the guy that we're after, he's inside your Chapter 5 folder, inside your Project Files folder. He's called Sewercreature.psd. I thought it would be really, really cool to create sort of a retro B-movie poster here with you inside Photoshop. And I'll show you all kinds of cool techniques for working with your layers as well. All right, so we have our Sewercreature here. Yet another cartoon drawn by yours truly for you and your entertainment. So let's see how this guy's going to work. Now, remember the checkerboard background. We know what that's all about, right? Take a look at the layers palette. There's no background layer here, just layer 1 all by himself here. So there's nothing else inside the image. No white background, no nothing. Just our sewer monster here. That's all there is. All right, now I'm going to create a new document to serve as the poster for our B movie. So I'm going to go up to the File menu and I'll choose New. Remember this dialog box from earlier, I'm sure. I'm going to give this guy a good name here. Movie poster, sounds good to me. The width and height, the dimensions of this image. Let's make him 11 inches in width by 17 inches in height, so he's 1117. Resolution is 72 pixels per inch, that's perfectly fine. Color mode, RGB, looks good. Click on OK. There's our image there. By the way, just sort of as a note of interest, notice my layers panel now. When I create a brand new blank document, I get a flattened background layer. Okay, so I'm going to take my sewer monster here. I want to drop him into my movie poster. Earlier, you saw with the statue and the clouds, I had my move tool turned on inside the toolbox, which I have turned on right now, and I grabbed the image and dragged it into another image, right? That's perfectly fine. That's one way to do it. Here's another way to do it. I'm actually going to grab the sewer monster layer, and I'm going to drag him into the movie poster, just like that. So that's another way to go about moving images between your files. Okay, so we're done with our Sewercreature.psd. I'm going to close out of him. I'm not going to bother saving him. As a matter of fact, I'll go full screen with this guy here. Just hit the F key on your keyboard. And we got to do a little bit of free transform here. This guy is super huge, so I'm going to zoom way out here. Remember your keyboard shortcut for your free transform? It's Command T on the Mac side or Control T on the Windows side. There we are. I'm holding down Option and Shift, and I'm dragging from the corner here, or Alt and Shift on the Windows side. Something like this. Zoom in a little bit while I'm still free transforming, by the way. Pretty cool stuff. Scale this guy down. Whoops, sometimes it gets a little away on you. So I'll just hold down my space bar. That grabs my hand tool. I'm still inside this free transform frame, which is pretty cool. I'm not exactly sure where I want this guy. I think I'll probably want to wind up around here somewhere. Maybe about, let's say there, roughly. We can always come back and change this guy. So let's say about there. I'll hit enter, lock him in there. The other thing that I should do, of course, best practices here, is rename layer 1 to Sewercreature. Remember, just double click on the layer name to rename them. Okay, the other thing that I want to do is I want to drop in the movie poster title, which I've created inside an Illustrator file. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up an Illustrator file and then drop it into our movie poster here. So I'm in full screen here, which actually is no good for this. So I'm going to hit the F key and I'll get this full screen here. That's fine. I'll just click on full screen. And then F one more time. That gets me back into regular old Photoshop. Double click on this gray background here one more time, and there's our Illustrator file from beneath .ai. I'm going to click on Open. Now, the interesting thing here is if you don't know much about Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop is what we call a raster image editor. It's all about pixels. We talked about that way at the beginning of this series. Now, Illustrator uses vector objects, and that means that we have mathematical-based lines and curves and shapes, so it's not based in the world of resolution or quality. A vector image is always at the highest quality that it can possibly be. Okay, so that's why I get this dialog box here. It doesn't just open the image. It gives me this dialog box and says, well, what size, what width and height do you want to bring this guy in at? What resolution do you want to bring this guy in at? What we're actually doing is rasterizing the vector object or converting the vector object to pixels, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that my width, I'm just going to round this off to 11 inches, and my resolution, I'll drop him way down to 72, because that's what we're dealing with our movie poster. I'll click on OK. There's our title for our movie, It Came From Beneath. I'll grab my move tool in the toolbox. He's already selected. Flick and drag this guy over. Now, you know what? I'm going to show you another neat trick. I'm dragging over from one image window to the other. I haven't let go of my mouse yet. I'm going to hold down the Shift key as I drag, and then I'll let go of the mouse first and then the Shift key. What that does is it drops the object into the exact center of the image window. Great, good stuff. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to close him out. Don't save. I'm going to take my 11:17 movie poster. I'll go back into full screen with the F key here. Zoom in a little bit. I'll do some renaming here instead of layer 1. I'll call this From Beneath. Now, our movie poster doesn't look like much here, but we're getting there. We have lots more to add into this image. So I'm going to take the title here, and I'm going to do a little free transform here. Again, Command-T or Control-T on the Windows side. I'll rotate this guy around a little bit. Position him up a little bit here. Maybe scale him a little bit. Get him exactly where I want. Enter to lock him in. Now, you know what? I got to show you something else. This is pretty cool. There's sort of a cousin to free transform called perspective. As a matter of fact, there's a whole group of these. Maybe I want to make my movie title look a little bit more menacing. So I have the From Beneath layer selected inside the Layers palette. I'm going to go to the Edit menu. Instead of free transform, I'm going to go down to Transform and then Perspective. And I get a frame around my object. Looks very similar to the free transform, but as soon as I start dragging on the corners, I can create this perspective effect. So maybe I'll go with something like that. Once again, enter to lock it in. I'll just zoom out a little bit here. I'll go back into my free transform and just kind of scale this down a little bit. I use free transform a heck of a lot for this kind of stuff. Just sort of positioning things and sizing things up where I want. Okay, we're looking good. Now, I want to show you something that we haven't talked about yet inside Photoshop. They're called layer styles. They're like special effects that you can apply to the contents of your layer. So I have my It Came From Beneath movie title here. I'm going to go over to the layer over on the side, and I'm going to double click on them. I'm not going to double click on the text, though. I'm going to double click here over towards the right-hand side. Double click on this guy, and you wind up inside the layer style dialog box. You can apply all kinds of amazing effects to the contents of your layer. As a matter of fact, I'll just kind of move this guy out of the way so we can see our text a little bit better. I could do a drop shadow, for example, if I want. As soon as I choose an option, by the way, not only does it show up inside the document window, but I'm going to get some controls showing up inside the main area of the dialog box, so I can monkey around with these options. So there's all kinds of them, and you're going to have to explore and mess around with these guys. What's great about these guys is they're non-destructive. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go back to drop shadow here. Maybe I will adjust the angle here and maybe the distance a little bit, you know, this sort of thing, the spread. Let's say I'm happy with that, right? I'm going to click on OK. Now check out the layers palette. It tells me that I have a layer effect or a layer style applied to this guy, which is called drop shadow. There's a little icon there indicating the same. I can actually collapse this down or expand it out if I want. Now I could double click back there, get back into the layer style dialog box, and continue editing my drop shadow. Maybe I'm not happy with the angle, or maybe I want that distance to be increased, or whatever the heck I want. Or maybe I don't want a drop shadow at all. I'll just turn the whole thing off. So the effect that I'm after is called stroke. So I'm going to go all the way down to stroke there, and I want to create a nice thick heavy stroke on my movie title poster. As a matter of fact, I'll drag this all the way up to about 20 odd pixels. Let's say 21 pixels there. There's the color black there. I can always go and change the color if I want, but I'm happy with that. So I'll click on OK here. Again, there's the effect applied in the layers palette. I'll collapse that down. Okay, things are looking good.